Anyway, okay, welcome again, everyone. My name is Marcia Nudland. I am one of the organizers for the National Middle Neighborhoods Community of Practice. Today, we're doing a webinar that we've titled 3 Successful Approaches to Supporting Business Districts in Middle Neighborhoods. And we don't often get to talk about business districts, and they are some of the most visible parts of our neighborhoods. They can really drive both outsiders' perceptions of what the direction is that neighborhood's taking. And also, in my experience, they also can affect sort of residents' feelings about their confidence in the future of those neighborhoods. And then, of course, that's not even to mention the economic development opportunities for those who own and run businesses there or own the real estate. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. Anne has put up our little poll. We always like to sort of see what sector our participants are from. Generally speaking, we tend to have nonprofits and local government as our 2 largest groups. And then we get, a mix of others as well. And this is shaping up to be as expected. Okay, Anne, I think.
Yep, there's your result.
Okay, great. So nonprofit and local government are our 2 biggest, but we also have an intermediary in here, a consultant, and a realtor. Always love to see realtors. Academic institution, nice. Okay, great. So I'm getting that on my screen. So I just wanted to start us off. For those of you who are not familiar with the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative or what a middle neighborhood is, I just have a couple of slides for you, and then we'll go into our panel. We are a national initiative that's really focused on mobilizing attention on middle neighborhoods in everyone's communities, because we have observed that they are disappearing over the last few decades, either through sort of benign neglect or through gentrification, depending on the market and the place where they exist. And we raise this attention through the community of practice, which is about, I don't know, I think we're at around 600-ish members across the country of people who, in one way or another, work with or think about or create policy about middle neighborhoods. And one of the things we do there is do these webinars. We also write up best practices and support research, which is the second category. Research on topics relevant to middle neighborhoods, policy analysis and advocacy around housing, lending, and community development, and communication strategies so that people are aware of what's going on. So this is an effort that's coordinated jointly by the National Community Stabilization Trust, NCST, and NeighborWorks America. And it is advised by a steering committee of researchers, practitioners, and policymakers. And 2 of our panelists today are on that steering committee. So what is middle neighborhood? We don't have hard and fast metrics for this, but we can say that most middle neighborhoods were built as single-family homes for families with children. They tend to be still well more than 50% owner-occupied, but depending on the regional economy that they're in, we often see that has been slowly eroding over time, where it might have been a neighborhood that was 95% owner occupied and it's down to 60 or 70. The housing stock tends to be older. It's still an acceptable condition. It still probably meets code, but it often lacks features and updates that would allow it to compete well for today's home buyers. So, perhaps, the first-time home buyer has the option of choosing a first ring suburb, or they could buy in the city. And sometimes it's about the number of bathrooms in the house, or you know, amenities, or when the kitchen was updated last, can really make a difference in those choices. One of the more interesting things to me about middle neighborhoods is that they do tend to be more racially, ethnically, and economically diverse than either their lower income or higher income counterparts. And to me, this is something I think about a lot, because throughout my career in community development, it has always been the case that there's been sort of this common wisdom that in more distressed neighborhoods, we're really trying to get them to be mixed income neighborhoods that are diverse and therefore more resilient in a variety of ways. And I think that middle neighborhoods kind of are those situations that we're trying to get to, and that makes them very much worth preserving. One of our sort of rules of thumb for you to start thinking about middle neighborhoods in your community would be to think about those neighborhoods that are neither the most distressed nor are they the healthiest. And where, if you really think about where they've been going over the last few decades, it's possible that they have been slowly declining. And there's a lot of people who work in middle neighborhoods see it as a modest investment to prevent these neighborhoods from becoming the next set of more disinvested neighborhoods. So that's a little bit about middle neighborhoods. I think you can also use our tool at our website to just sort in your MSA by a number of different income criteria on the left-hand side of the screen, to pop out the census tracts that meet certain income criteria, which is usually you know, a back of the envelope number that we start with, to sort of see and to start discussion about whether those are really the middle neighborhoods in your community or not. It's also possible in those districts to look at their racial makeup, because of course the conditions in predominantly white middle neighborhood are typically much better off, because they have not been as disinvested as, say, a middle neighborhood that is a black middle neighborhood, where investment has not been maintained and perhaps was never as significant in the first place. So we can talk more about that later. Our panelists today: Michael Elliott is the Vice President of Neighborhood Economic Development for Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. And Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, as Michael will describe to us, has a clear set of outcomes around middle neighborhoods in Cleveland. They think about it a lot. They have a lot of people involved in it. And Michael is a person who really focuses on the business districts in those neighborhoods. Amber Lynch is the executive director through the end of this week or so. She has been the founding executive director at Invest DSM and has been there for 5 years in Des Moines, Iowa, and works in a number of what they call special investment districts that all meet the criteria of what we will call middle neighborhoods. And she does a lot of housing strategy, a lot of public place strategy, and she also does strategy in the business districts. And then Nidra Sims-Fears is the executive director of the Greater Chatham Initiative in Chicago. And as long as I've known Nidra, she's one of the founding members of the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative. She's been heavily focused on her commercial district, and she does pretty amazing, like, national story types of initiatives in her business district, and you're going to be really excited to hear about them. So we're going to start with Michael. I want to thank all three of our panelists for working with us today. And Michael, you can unmute yourself and launch your slides, and off we go. And everyone, we're going to try and hold most questions to the end, where we have a Q&A period. But if you would like to type questions into the chat or the Q&A, we may be able to answer some of them in the chat or Q&A along the way. So take it away,
All right.
Michael.
All right. Can you hear me? Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about the work that we're doing here in Cleveland. Again, my name is Michael Elliott, VP of Neighborhood Economic Development for Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, a nonprofit intermediary here in Cleveland. We were formed to serve the Community Development Corporation ecosystem. So that's about 17 CDCs. That does everything. Let's just face it. CDCs do a lot of work, and our job is to provide that technical assistance, capacity building, and expertise in the areas that matter most to them as well too. So very excited about this work. We've been working in this area for the last year and a half, 2 years. A lot of the senior level individuals on the team worked at the city or worked with other CDCs and really helped build the foundation for how we do this work here in Cleveland. So extremely excited about the work here. We already kind of talked about what our neighborhood, so I won't elaborate on this too much. But again, many of the projects, specifically the homes, were built in the early 20s, late 20s, early 30s. So we were seeing most of them being mostly family, single family housing with strong main streets. Right now, we're seeing really a decline view of home ownership. We got an aging stock of housing and commercial real estate that's really being impacting individuals who want to stay or relocate within our city, specifically these middle neighborhoods. We're noticing that the property values are declining or flat or not competing or underperforming against what the city and or inflation. And also the appraisal gaps have been also a hindrance to market-based lending in this particular area. I want to show a map of Cleveland's middle neighborhoods or the middle market areas. Everything located in yellow are considered our middle neighborhoods. A key thing that I've always noticed that these are really along the city boundary, so they're also adjacent to many first ring suburbs, which, to be quite frank, we're competing with, which is one of the reasons why the Middle Neighborhood Initiative is so important. So our approach is a dual approach. So we're doing both residential as well as commercial investment. Our strategy is hyper-focused. So even though we have sizable middle neighborhood markets within the city of Cleveland, we want to get really very hyper-focused within a particular corridor and adjacent side streets. Again, we're going to try our best through our initiatives to really decrease or lower the barriers to occupancy. We want to fill up those vacant storefronts. As well as for our residential, we're really focused on diversifying and modernizing those particular real estate homes. So why invest in main streets? Main streets provide that first impression. So typically before you get on a side street, you're usually traveling down a main street, which again gives you that first impression of whether you want to do business in this particular area or if you want to move or live or grow a family here. Also, we're looking to stop the cycle of disinvestment on main streets. Again, that perception matters. And so if we have a negative perception of a commercial corridor, then that usually does not attract the type of businesses that you want in the area. They usually leads to some type of deferred maintenance that, trickles down to lower taxes, revenue coming to the city as well, too. Main streets are also places where entrepreneurs and small businesses thrive with that hyper-focused area. They kind of feed off of one another as well. And then we also want to make sure that we're focusing on main streets that's going to attract the amenities that the residents around there seek after as well. Just one of the major things I want to touch on regarding why side streets here really want to provide inventory of housing stock that's going to compete with other communities. Again, Cleveland has experiencing population decline for many decades. And so we want to do our best as a company or organization to really how to retain and attract individuals into these particular neighborhoods as well. Now, I know that this is really focused on commercial corridor, but I'd be remiss if I didn't really mention the work of our residential team, a great team that's doing a lot of awesome work. So I just want to really high level view of one of the projects that they worked on recently. Again, our goal is really hyper-focused investment. This is a map of an area of North Collinwood here in the city of Cleveland. Along the left side is East 185th Street, a major commercial corridor in this particular neighborhood. And again, our goal is how do we have a hyper-focused investment with the residential very close by. So this is one of the houses that we worked on. Again, the residential team is doing a great job in identifying commercial spaces where they're vacant and the sell or the seller or the owner is looking to sell. In this particular case, which is really common for most of the houses in this area, we got 2 bedroom, 1 bath, a 1 car garage. And then I had to look this up. Knob and tube wiring was an old school way of wiring homes in this particular era of building. So again, this is, reflective of the housing stock here in Cleveland, many neighborhoods within the city of Cleveland. Again, when you look at this, you're thinking, this is definitely something that, when you're thinking about other neighborhoods outside of the city of Cleveland, this is not necessarily the kind of place that really attracts you to it. So here's a before picture. Again, needs a lot of work. Landscaping, it could definitely use a power washing, updated lighting, etc. But this is what it looks like now. Again, the team here has been doing a very awesome job. Great team. We have a contractor, we have a realtor, we have a project manager on staff, and they do a very great job in identifying properties and working with the contractor to really get it looking like this here. So here's the before. I just want to hit y'all again. That's the before, and here's the after. Here's some additional pictures. So now with the investment that we put into the building, we increase the square footage or the space at least. We add some dormers on top to allow for another 2 additional bedrooms. We're able to install another bath, 2 car garage. Again, that's reflective of our particular travel, how we do transportation now. So 2 car garage, and we got new wiring, furnaces, AC, and kitchen. So a drastic improvement to what it looked like before. Again, our goal is to put in the market attractive homes that will compete with other communities out there as well. Just want to quickly just show you some of what it looks like in the inside. Again, we really opened up the space. Again, open floor design. Again, there's the bathroom there. Again, completely updated, remodeled, up-to-dated version of this here. Here's the kitchen. Again, you can see how it's closed off, very tight. Not a lot of room to, have guests around. So we opened that up. Here's another picture of what it looked like there. There's the bathroom now. Again, granite countertops, new appliances. Again, new lighting. Goal is to compete. We want to attract home buyers into this market. These are market rate houses as well too. Again, this is the second floor, which is an attic. As you can see there, and then we were able to put again those dormers on top, add an additional room, 2 rooms to be more exact, add another bathroom. So again, our goal is really there's a 2 car garage. Again, this is meeting the needs of the current home buyer in the market right now as well. So let's talk a little bit about the Main Street work that my team is doing here. Again, white boxing, storefronts, facade improvements. Our goal is through not a micro grant, but a matching grant program. So for every dollar that you put into the program, for white boxing, storefront, placemaking even, we're looking to match that typically up to $50,000, $60,000. Again, another map illustrated kind of that hyper-focused investment that we're trying to do. On the left there, you see one of the homes. We actually got 2 homes along this particular court, along in this particular area that we're redeveloping. And on the right, on the left here, you see the projects that I'm working on, one of which I'll talk in a few moments. Again, hyper-focused investment. We want to see that those who are interested in buying a home to have quick access to various amenities along the commercial corridor that they're going to be traveling. And in order to get down to Mustoka Homes, you're going to definitely have to pass these particular projects that we're hoping that once complete will provide those amenities that these shoppers are looking for as well. So here's one of the projects here that we've been working on for the past year. There is a furniture store right across the street called City Desk. And he's actually expanding. He's been there for decades. And so his business has been growing over those years. And so now he's looking for more space. There was a vacant commercial building, I believe around 25,000 square feet across the street that he took ownership with. We're actually working on the actual in-cap space as a phase 1 project. It used to be a historic bank. Now it's going to be converted to provide an opportunity for a business owner. We actually have a tenant identified. Of course, we can't name that right now. But again, because of the work that we're doing in providing capital to business owners and property owners, we're able to get these spaces white box which white boxing helps to lower the barrier of entry to these particular locations. And as a result, not only do we have a white box space, but he's also going to be working on his expansion project under a phase 2. Another project that we're working on, this is in the Jefferson Purist neighborhood. Again, this particular restaurant has been in the community for many, many years. As you can see at the very bottom picture, which is the current picture right now, it could use some work. The signage can use some work. There's what I would call a patio there that can definitely need some work as well too. Because of these dollars that we're providing through the matching grant program, not only are we able to update that particular storefront, but we're also opening up additional spaces for to attract new individuals into these spaces as well too. Placemaking is a key part of this program as well too. Yes, this is a bus stop, but behind that bus stop is a barber shop that puts significant investment, I believe over $1 million to update that particular building. We want to make sure that we're complementing the investment that building owners and property owners are already putting in there as well too. So this is in the West Park Cams neighborhood. We're looking to see if we can update the shrubbery here. This wall here of bricks, if you got close to it, it looks absolutely terrible. So we're working with the CDC to actually redo this space so that, again, it complements the existing investment that's going into the neighborhood, again, helping to change that perception as well too. Neighborhood marketing is very key. So the team, Ed Stockhausen, has a team of individuals who are working on neighborhood marketing. We developed a Love Cleveland neighborhood. I'll hold the screen if you want to take a picture of that QR code that takes you to the website. All of Cleveland neighborhoods have a dedicated page where we're talking about all things their neighborhood. Again, this is helping to change that perception, seeing how there's momentum, there's activity. If residents want to put together a local event, they can come to the website to post that information there. But our goal as an initiative, Middle Neighborhoods Initiative in the city of Cleveland, is really how do we promote these neighborhoods to showcase what great work the CDCs are doing to really attract the businesses and the residents to the neighborhood as well too. Here's some additional marketing. So for those particular storefronts that are vacant that we're providing white box funding for, we really want to market those spaces. So on the left there, we're probably all familiar with those for rent signs that quite frankly don't look the best. So one of the ways to really attract individuals to put eyes on the investment that we're putting in is to build these very low cost, very vibrant signs that when you're driving by, you can quickly see and notice, wow, there's something going on in this particular neighborhood. It's on brand, so these are the colors that we're using throughout the various middle neighborhoods. So we really want to show that we are making attempts to, one, change perception, show activity, make investments in these particular neighborhoods. And so just imagine, especially on a commercial corridor that has many different vacant spaces, compare that sign to the other sign, you can really start to get that momentum like, something's going on around here. How can I be a part? How can I invest in this particular area? For this particular sign, again, also in the West Park Camps neighborhood, as a result, this space has been getting a lot of inquiries. One of the things that we're noticing though is those vape shops and smoke shops. We've been getting a lot of calls about those. So we're very happy. You see the little sign Key Bank there. They do have some level of power and control about what goes in there. So we're glad that we're partnering with another property owner that is actually helping us kind of weed off those. We know that they don't want us really a vape shop there, so we're really helping us sell the property to the right tenants as well too. So partnerships is key, funding is key to make this all work. I would be remiss if I did not mention the active role that the community development corporations play in all of this. They're the boots on the ground, allowing us or providing us insight about what's going on within the particular neighborhood, helping us build a pipeline, as well as building TA services for the businesses and property owners. One of the things that we're finding out is a lot of property owners or business owners are not too familiar with the various permitting, design review requirements. Community development corporations have been playing a pivotal role in providing that TA to help business owners navigate the various requirements of City Hall as well. Various funding sources here, State of Ohio, City of Cleveland, Rocket Mortgage has been playing a key partner, as well as the Cleveland Browns, believe it or not, have been providing funding so that we can support the efforts of this particular initiative. So how do we measure success? We're looking at a number of different factors. We're looking at the number of individuals who are participating on construction contracts for these projects that we're doing. We're looking at the number of white box space inquiries as well. We're doing comparative analysis on sales in the market. Some interim goals here, property tax evaluations we're looking at. We're looking at an increase in building and construction permits being taken out, as well as inquiries of investment from other sources. And then looking at from a long-term perspective, increases in average household incomes, increasing in commercial occupancy and tenants, sales of comparable, increase of percentages as well too, plus a number of factors here. So we definitely want to make sure we're keeping our eye on the ball, making sure that we're getting an ROI on the investment that we're putting forth here. So some challenges and insights. One of the biggest things that I've been experiencing is there are some diamond in the roughs, but typically you got to turn over a few stones. And why I bring that up is these two buildings actually have businesses in them. You may not think of it by looking on the outside, but for the first one on top there's actually a trucking logistics company here located within that particular storefront. Now, what I'm learning in this particular process is, because he doesn't have customers coming in and out of the building, he doesn't feel a need at first to actually have a storefront that looks presentable. But through the work of the Community Development Corporation, we were able to incentivize him to actually spruce up and I wouldn't even want to call it spruce up. I mean, he's making a significant investment, around $120,000 to update that particular storefront. That probably wouldn't have happened without these particular dollars here. Investment happens, but it's just slow. One of the things that's very beneficial about these programs is a lot of property owners are making investment, but they're piecemealing it. And so because they're not leveraging other people's money, they're actually going in. I had one particular case where he was doing white boxing in space over the last couple of years. So with our money, we're able to speed up that process as well too. One of the things that I've also noticed is the residents in these particular neighborhoods do have a sense of pride and loyalty. As I was doing site visits for many of the locations here, I'm literally following the business around as they're picking up trash along the way. So there is that sense of pride in the neighborhood. So dollars like this, support like this really helps to foster that pride. Job creation. One of the things that I'm noticing, particularly with our government partners, is this focus on job creation. I'm finding out it's kind of built into the ordinances or the funding sources that they get receive. One of the things that I'm trying to advocate is that, yes, job creation should be a focus, but when we're trying to revitalize commercial corridors and increase the inventory available, sometimes we just need to focus on just getting the white box or getting the storefront improved, and job creation is kind of a secondary matter. Flexibility is key, so having programs that offer our diverse use cases, diverse requirements is going to be critical. And then I'm finding out that a lot of businesses need a lot of technical assistance as they go through the process as well too. So that's it for me. Hopefully I didn't go over too quickly. If you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to talk more about the programs and initiatives, and I'll be ready for any questions that you might have as well too. And I'll stop sharing my screen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michael. Wow, that was really cool. I'm going to ask for a couple of clarifying questions, and we'll save some of the bigger discussion questions until everyone's done, but the funding source for the residential rehab and that, excuse me, that really great makeover example you gave, can you tell the cost of that rehab roughly?
Well, the rehab, I will believe, and don't quote me on this, maybe around 100,000, but I could be wrong. It was upwards to $100,000 approximately. And so
Indeed.
for, Rocket Mortgage provided a sizable, and the city of Cleveland provided a significant amount of dollars to help with the construction renovation and acquisition dollars as well too. We receive acquisition dollars for these particular projects as well too.
Are you set up in a way that uh, you're able to take a loss on properties as part of the strategy for building up appraisal?
Yeah, we definitely are taking a loss. That's why we needed those additional funding sources in order to kind of fill those gaps. But yeah, this is definitely something that in order to kind of move the needle, we have to take that risk in order to kind of see that progression of housing values in this particular area. So yes, we are
Yeah.
taking a loss.
I think that's really smart, and I love that you think about, well, I mean, I don't know if people still say this, but when it used to be people would talk about retail follows rooftops, right? So you have to have the warm bodies to support the business district if you're going to have a thriving business district. So I like that you're doing this integrated thing. And then I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about what white boxing is and how it might be a more intensive process in these kinds of middle neighborhood business districts than it would be, say, in regularly, occupied multi-business building.
Yeah, one of the major challenges that I'm seeing is because of all the deferred maintenance, it is costing a lot more to kind of get everything up to code. So for our particular work, we're helping with plumbing, we're helping with electrical, we're helping with even roofs. I mean, I'm finding in situations where the roof needs to be addressed before we can even go in the inside as well too. So that's why I really harp on just the flexibility of the funding sources. A lot of the business owners are paying out of pocket, meaning that that's their equity match. We also got creative as well too. A lot of business owners, because they've already put a lot of money into the property already, they don't have any additional capital use. So if they've did any improvements in the past, let's just say a year or 12 months, we'll use those historic costs as a
Mhm.
match into the program to help. Now we do take some more control over kind of what the end result will be. But again, we're trying to be very sensitive to the fact that a lot of the business owners are making investments. They weren't aware of any programs that would help. Many of them are not willing to take on any kind of loans. So, being flexible with the program to really help these business owners or property owners get the business on of the property, excuse me, up to code is very critical as well too. We're also finding in these particular areas the code enforcement aspect. In one particular community, we're working with a councilwoman where we're sending out letters to projects that are or properties that are not compliant, trying to play that kind of good cop, bad cop, where you get a letter, but the CDC's come along with resources, particularly our funding resources, say, hey, can we get these particular buildings? So they may not be full-fledged commercial um, facade improvements or white box, but if we can just, maybe attack very small projects where we're doing code enforcement assistance in some degree, these are kind of micro ways to kind of getting into a larger project as well.
That's great. I think when we're doing the longer Q&A, I'd like to engage everybody in a discussion about the motivations of property owners and the range of those motivations or lack thereof, et cetera, and how maybe you problem solve around that. So, but let's move on to Amber. And I think that Anne is going to advance her slides. And again, this is Amber Lynch. She's the Executive Director of Invest DSM. And I'm sure she's going to tell us something about Invest DSM. But Amber, I've worked with Amber in Des Moines when she was first getting going in, more than 5 years ago. time travels, but she's really accomplished a lot. So thank you so much, Amber, for joining us, and take it away.
Thanks, Marcia. And thanks, Michael. It's always really interesting to me to hear what you all are up to in Cleveland. You know, despite kind of the differences in the sizes of our community, there's still a lot of similarities in the types of strategies that we're working with here. So, hi everybody. It's great to be with you today. Des Moines is more of a mid-sized city, so our population is about 215,000. But we are in a metro area that's more around 750,000 and growing. We're the central city in our region, also the capital city of Iowa, and so we've experienced a lot of similar trends to other central cities across the country. You can go ahead to the next slide, Anne. As Marcia mentioned, InvestESM is a nonprofit organization. I would say we're pretty similar to a CDC, and kind of the first organization in Des Moines to act in a truly place-based way in terms of working at the neighborhood level and not kind of on a citywide or an almost citywide level. We were put into place in the summer of 2019. Through a partnership of the city of Des Moines and Polk County, and the city and county still continue to be our two primary funders. So the dollars that we are working with are generated by a local option sales tax. And the nice thing about that is it's local money, and so it's really flexible. We've really been able to kind of write our own rules around how we use those funds. You know, of course, it's tied to the revitalization goals of the city and county. The Des Moines has had a neighborhood revitalization program that goes back to the late 80s. But in 2017 or so, we took a really hard look at that program, feeling like it was not moving the needle in neighborhoods in the way that it needed to. And so we really revamped it, and InvestESM is one of the things that came out of that revamp. So even though we're a relatively new organization, we're kind of filling a gap in a revitalization landscape that's been in place for quite a while. And so we are specifically focusing on those neighborhoods that fall in the middle market. So not the healthiest in our community and also not the most distressed. That really came from a lot of data work, and similar to some of the things that Michael mentioned, we were seeing a trend of declining property conditions, but also of pretty stagnant property values, where a lot of our neighborhoods were underperforming both the city average and inflation. And so trying to come in as a prevention mechanism to prevent more neighborhoods from experiencing that decline and having worse disinvestment over time. And so we focus on a broad range of things within the neighborhoods we serve. Next slide. Even though InvestESM specifically is focusing on middle market neighborhoods, we're also part of a much greater range of programs and services that are provided both by the city and other partners. And so while our work focuses on those areas that are kind of in the light green and aqua on the map, we have other tools available to other types of neighborhoods as well in our community. Next slide. InvestESM, we started with 4 neighborhoods, and we are in the process of expanding into 2 more right now. So we'll be up to 6. We intend to be in each neighborhood area for about a 10-year time frame, thinking that's about how long it's going to take to kind of get them back into a healthy market position within the real estate market. And so these first 4 areas were selected by our city council back in 2018. And not only did they have middle market characteristics in terms of the housing stock, but they were also near other assets in our community, or other things that were going on. So we were trying to build on momentum that already existed, even if it was in a small way. But then we also had some local politics get involved since this was a new program. And so we started with one one special investment district that was in each council ward. And I will say we started with a really small geographic scale because we wanted to be able to concentrate the investment in a way that helped it to grow. And over the last 5 years, we've expanded the boundaries of each one of our special investment districts over that period of time. Next slide. So InvestESM operates 6 different grant programs. In addition to these grant programs, which is where we do the majority of our work, but we also do some property development as well. So we do acquisition. Oh, I don't know why there's a timing thing in there. Can you go back, Anne? Sorry about that. So we do acquisition rehab as well. We also get lots ready for new home construction and are doing some single family infill work. Most of that is in the residential arena, but we also have assembled some land for commercial redevelopment, and I'll talk about one of those projects a little bit later. But in terms of our grant programs, we're doing a lot of work on the residential side of the coin as well. And so, you know, over 90% of all of our projects are with existing homeowners in the neighborhoods that we're working in, helping them to do upgrades to their older homes so that they will hopefully stay in our neighborhoods longer term. And then that home is also in a more marketable position when they go to sell it eventually. Today, I'm really going to focus on our commercial work. Each of our 4 original special investment districts was either adjacent to or had a commercial corridor running through it, because we really felt similar to Cleveland that those main street areas or business districts are kind of a front door to these neighborhoods, and there can be great synergy in trying to improve those places and the surrounding homes. So go ahead to the next slide. We do have a commercial grant program. And very similar to Cleveland, actually, it's also a matching grant program, so pretty straightforward. For this, we will take applications either from the building owner or from the tenant, so long as the tenant has that building owner's permission. But sometimes we'll see a new tenant coming into a space, use our grant to help them work through the tenant improvements that are needed. And sometimes we're working with the building owner on more of the building envelope. We have kind of 3 different categories to the grant program. So we will share the costs of some of the pre-development work that's required. So if somebody needs to bring in an architect or a civil engineer, they can submit those costs to us and we'll reimburse them for half, up to $10,000 on the front end work, really trying to encourage good design and to make sure that the structural integrity of the building is intact. A lot of the commercial buildings that we're working with are older, you know, early 1900s buildings, or at least pre-1950s buildings. And so there can be structural issues or code compliance issues that need to be addressed. Then even if someone has received a pre-development grant from us, they can come back around and get another grant for construction. And that, again, is a dollar-for-dollar match up to $50,000. When we wrote the program, we were really thinking of kind of the 1-story commercial building, but of course we've learned that commercial buildings come in all shapes and sizes and often have multiple retail bays within them, and sometimes have upper story residential. And so we've kind of flexed the grant to be on a per retail bay basis. Again, kind of focusing on what does the real estate really need in order to be up to code and modernized and really looking good from the exterior. Under that grant program since 2020, we've completed 39 projects in our 4 special investment districts, totaling over $37 million of total investment. And just to kind of unpack that a little bit, the majority of those projects are smaller scale, probably, you know, less than $250,000 projects, some that are even more in that $40,000 range. And then we've had 2 or 3 really big, you know, $12 to $15 million projects where our dollars have been a much smaller piece of their overall funding puzzle. So those bigger projects tend to pad our numbers nicely, but I just want to let you know that we're doing a lot of the small scale work as well. And then we do have an art grant component to this that again is kind of a smaller dollar match for business owners to bring artists in to do things, creative things in their storefront windows or murals on the side of the building or a redesign of their signage package, things like that. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide. We'll get there. Thank you. So for today, Marcia asked me to talk about some of the projects where we got really creative. So I'm going to focus on two of those that were up in our Oak Park, Highland Park Special Investment District. So that's on the north side of Des Moines. It's at the intersection of two major corridors. One of them is a state highway. And there's been a lot of discussion around how to make that street a little bit more business district friendly. How do you have that not be such a major kind of traffic barrier through the area? Of the areas that we're working in, it's probably the one that has the most intact kind of historic Main Street feeling business district. A lot of 1- and 2-story commercial buildings, some upper story residential, but really that kind of zero lot line Main Street feel to it. When we first got started in 2019, the majority of the storefronts were vacant or really underutilized. There was a lot of deferred maintenance on many of the buildings, not all of the buildings, but we still had a few anchor businesses that had really invested owners. And kind of a new generation of folks moving in to these storefronts that were really excited about reviving the business district. And they were able to come in because, you know, with deferred maintenance on buildings, kind of the benefit to that is that the rents tend to be really affordable. One of the other things that we were seeing was that, you know, even though there was a restaurant and a shop and there really wasn't a great gathering space in this area. And so one of the things that the few business owners here were really focused on were how do we bring some of those third spaces back into this community so that we have, you know, a coffee shop where people can meet up or just a place where people can kind of linger and get together. Next slide, please. Part of the reason we ended up in this neighborhood to begin with was really because of this kind of energized group of business owners that was driving a lot of conversations at the city level around how to slow traffic down and how to reinvest in their area. That's okay, Anne, no problem. So the first project we really took on, this was late 2019. And so InvestESM as an organization was just starting to get going. But this was the Highland Bakery. And the bakery opened in 1946. It had been owned by one family all throughout, and they were ready to retire. And there was just this feeling that if the bakery closed, it would kind of sound the death knell for this area. And it would really be a blow to everybody's psyche at a time when we were trying to come in and start a rejuvenation. So, you know, between us at InvestESM, as we were early days and had no grant programs built out yet, and city economic development staff and some other partners, we really felt like we need to do what we can to try and keep this business going. Thankfully, there was someone coming in who wanted to buy the bakery business, and they intended to buy the building as well. But at the time, because of other things they had going on, they were unable to take on and finance the costs of a full building renovation. You can see the family, you know, they maintained the building in relatively good order, but when you walked in on the right side, you know, it was a very small pickup counter space. It ran fully on a cash basis. And then the left side of the building was only being used for storage. So there was a lot of underutilized space. The kitchen needed a lot of upgrading to, again, kind of be code compliant. And the new owners, as they were coming into this business, they wanted to retain what was special about the bakery, but they also wanted to kind of expand some of the offerings that it had. So go ahead to the next slide when it will not stick for you. So we ended up having to get pretty creative about how we structured this to get it going. Again, the people who were coming in and taking over the bakery business weren't able to take on that full building renovation. So we had another nonprofit partner, the Neighborhood Development Corporation. They are a commercial developer. And so they came in and bought the building and took over management of the renovation project on the building. And that allowed the new bakery owner, to really focus on getting their new bakery operation up and running, to focus on the equipment that they needed to replace and the upgrades that they needed to do the kitchen. And they were able to lease that space from NDC. And then they had an option to purchase the building back within 5 years once everything was stabilized. The City of Des Moines Economic Development and InvestESM, we both came in with loans to Neighborhood Development Corporation in order for them to both purchase and renovate the building. And so, you know, those loans were secured, but we also had a repayment built in at the time that NDC sold the building back to the bakery owners. Go ahead to the next slide. So all of that happened relatively quickly. You know, we kind of made this decision to partner together at the end of 2019. NDC got to work right away on the renovation, aiming to get the bakery back into service as quickly as possible. The bakery was able to reopen kind of spring of 2020. And then they had not only did they kind of open up the counter area on the right side there, but on the left side, they added a full service kind of seating area where those who were picking up coffee and donuts or, you know, a slice of cake or a cupcake or cookies, whatever, could go have a seat and at least start to add a little bit of a third space, gathering space there. It ended up in late 2022, ahead of schedule. The bakery owners were able to purchase the building back from NDC. And so at that point in time, the two loans were repaid. And then ultimately, kind of late 2023, those bakery owners decided that perhaps the early mornings of the bakery business were not for them after all. And so they ended up selling both the building and the bakery to a third set of owners who are still in the area and doing extremely well. In that time, so over the last 6 years, we've seen the value of the building triple, and it continues to kind of thrive as one of the anchors in this area. So go ahead to next slide, Anne. Across the street, we had another similar situation with Chuck's Restaurant, an Italian restaurant that first opened in 1956, and again was an anchor business in the area that you know, people felt a very, very strong and continue to feel a very strong attachment to. The family who originally owned this building and business had sold it in 2014 to a young couple who, you know, wanted to keep the history of it and kind of keep everything that made it special going. It's also continues to be a place that is known for packaging hundreds of free Thanksgiving meals every year, and then hosting a variety of, you know, kind of civic events, election parties. Our current mayor had had her election party there this last go around. So when we first got started, the new business owners were concerned because there was a leak in the roof, and they just, the costs to repair that, the estimates they were getting were more than they could afford. Go ahead to the next slide. And so again, we kind of had the same partners stepping in, trying to figure out, okay, how do we make something here work? We had very willing building and business owners, one and the same, but they just didn't have the financial capacity to kind of take on what was needed. And that roof leak, you know, there's always a domino effect with these older buildings. And so it wasn't just the fact that the roof was leaking. There were significant structural repairs that were needed to the building, a wall that was pulling away, and then all the code compliance things that starts to trigger. So we had a similar situation here where Neighborhood Development Corporation ended up purchasing the building and leasing it back to the restaurant owners. And they are still doing that, although they plan to sell the building back, I think within this next 12 months. And then NDC managed the building renovation again, and they had funding from the city again as well. And then also a loan, more of a grant from InvestESM this time. So go ahead to the next slide. This ended up being a much more substantial building renovation. It's a lot bigger building. And so I think it's around 8,000 square feet on the ground floor. And then the upper floor is more like 3,000 square feet. But it ended up being about a $1.4 million building renovation just to get the structural issues and the roof addressed, and then new mechanical systems throughout. But we also were able to renovate 4 upper story apartments that had been sitting vacant. And so those are now back in service and occupied and generating rent for the building. So all of that, we ended up with a $280,000 grant from InvestESM. But when NDC sells the building back to the restaurant owners, we'll also get a share of those resale proceeds. And it's a little squishy, it's a little undefined in that agreement because we weren't sure what the timing would be or what the valuation would be at that point in time. But as you can see, the value of the building has increased substantially over the last 6 years. Go ahead to the next slide. Some of the other things that we're doing up in this business district, you know, we've done, I think, 26 different grants up here. And I think I may have those numbers coming next, but we're also working through the parcels that you see outlined in blue. We're working through property acquisition to assemble those and taking on the design and engineering for an expanded parking lot to better serve the business district. It will also have a public plaza space that will carve out some private outdoor patios for the adjoining restaurants. The parcel on the right that's outlined in red, that was again a parcel that we took ownership of. It had an 8-unit apartment building that was in really rough shape and ended up being demolished. And we have a sale pending to a developer for a new construction of a 12-unit 2-story residential building that should start construction later this year. Then to the south, the parcels that are outlined there in yellow. This is a site that we've assembled over the last probably 4 years. The parcels that are fronting on Euclid Avenue there were buildings on them. And originally we were doing the 3 middle parcels, not the corner, to try and do more of a commercial infill project. The corner, there was a developer attempting to rehab a historic 12-unit apartment building there, but they ended up, the rehab project ended up being just much too cost prohibitive to actually get done. And so we ended up buying them out and taking that building down and have assembled that site for redevelopment. We've spent the past year working with a developer on a new design and costing that out. And we've gotten to a great place with that. But unfortunately, with construction costs being where they are, with interest rates being where they are currently, and then with rents still being kind of under market in this area, we've just pressed the pause button on that project for now until the market environment is in a little bit better place. Go ahead to the next slide. So, we've seen a lot of progress in this area over the last 6 years. Like I mentioned, we've done, in addition to the projects that we talked through that were a little outside of the box, we've also done, 26 other grants. And there's been a total investment of about $12 million in this area. In recent years, we continue to have ongoing work, but we see more businesses coming in to fill those storefronts each year, more spaces being renovated, and the city's also working on a lane reduction project to improve walkability and accessibility around both of these major corridors. So next slide, please. Oh, that was my last one. So I will leave it there, and then happy to come back at the end and answer any questions. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted me to touch on at this moment, Marcia, but then we can pass it off to Nidra.
No, I don't think so. I think you did a really, really great job of describing. One of the things I really admire about Invest DSM's work is that they have detailed knowledge of what's going on in each district. And they knew, for example, if that bakery went away, that was going to be like a bomb on people's confidence in the future of that neighborhood. And just being willing to take on the projects that are just too complicated for the market to deal with so that the market can deal with the rest of it, I think is a great lesson there. So let's hand it over to Nidra to talk about the Greater Chatham Initiative, where she has really focused. I think you'll see a little bit difference here where she's really focusing on the retail mix, the identity of the district, the historic nature of it, creating a sort of a destination commercial district so that it has a bigger trade area than just the immediate neighborhood. So Nidra, thank you, and take it away.
Oh, thank you, Marcia, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nidra Sims-Fears, Executive Director of the Greater Chatham Initiative, and similar to Michael and Amber, we have similar issues and use the same kind of tactical activation techniques. So for this presentation, we're just going to focus on one commercial corridor. Next slide. So we call this Mahalia's Mile, named after Mahalia Jackson, who was the famous gospel singer in the late 20th century, who lived in a neighborhood adjacent to our 79th Street, which is a thriving commercial district on the south side of Chicago. Next slide. So as I indicated, it's a 1 mile stretch, and we were really pleased that in 2024, we became one of 10 official state of Illinois cultural districts. And so we get some support from the city and from the state, but a lot of the work that we do is from private foundations. Next. Okay. So our key objective is in developing this is what everyone else had said before, and we want to occupy vacant storefronts, support existing businesses, beautify the corridor, and establish a cultural hub. Next. So we've done that by really listening to the community. We have had 12 community meetings with over 400 distinct participants, and we get them to vote on what needs to happen and what they want to see in the corridor. Next. And so this is an overview of the zoning. You can see that similar to Michael's presentation, that we have big 3-story commercial walk-up buildings that front the corridors, and then adjacent to it, perpendicular, are the yellow, the residential, single family, 2 to 4 unit buildings, some larger multifamily buildings. But you can see that the spine is a neighborhood shopping district. Next. So for the land use, we have a variety of different usages, some office, some restaurant and bars, multifamily parking, and this is really important. So our commercial district, I would say probably half of it looks a little down market, which is not what we prefer, but it is still a viable market. And it is a historic preservation building. And so when people come to the neighborhood, they remark about how beautiful the housing stock is and how vibrant the corridor is. Next slide. So one of the things that we are facing are with vacant units, that we have 77 buildings along the corridor that are roughly owned by about 40 landlords. And roughly 60% of the storefronts are occupied, and which is 40% of vacant. And so we really focus on what we can do for those vacant properties. That similarly, we did analysis, and when we looked at the big buildings, 25% of our landlords were international property owners, and then roughly 35% were investors in the United States, and the balance were from the greater Chicagoland area. And so they have different operating principles, let's say that. Next slide. So one of the things that we do is to look at what cultural assets that are in place. And so we have 15 restaurants, which are really important because we learned from cell phone data that are folks that live along the corridor. They actually eat and recreate along the corridor. And so the restaurants are really important, the churches that they frequent. Who knew that we have two funeral parlors that bring in people from all over the metro area. And so knowing who our cultural assets are really important because it tells us who frequents the neighborhood and why. Next slide. So we created 3 destination points for the for Mahalia Mall. One was Mahalia Jackson Court, which was formerly a vacant lot, and we 2 years ago put in a public park that had food courts and a park and eating and exhibition, and it was really well utilized. We found that we increased the foot traffic by 50% by having the park and help create this lovely amenity that you can see in the pictures. Next slide. We also created, this is one of the buildings that we renovated. Amber, I get you that we personally, Greater Chatham, rehabilitated this space. It was formerly vacant, and it's characteristic of our 1920s beautiful terracotta buildings. We renovated this space, turned it into an art studio that has morphed into a Mahalia Jackson gift shop, and we've had lots of activities. And so doing these 2 things, having the anchor space for Mahalia Jackson Court and the gift shop, let the community know that we're in it to win it. Next slide. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to tell the story of the community. And so in 2024, we commissioned 8 murals so that there was long stories about famous people. So over on the right, you see Thomas Dorsey, who was a mentor to Mahalia Jackson, and Mahalia Jackson and Thomas Dorsey literally invented gospel music. So we wanted not just to have the oral stories, but to actually commemorate them. And so the murals do that in their QR codes where people can go and get the backstory. So let's go quickly through the next slides just so you can see the murals. Okay, next slide. Okay, so one of my favorite murals, thank you for the heart, on the right, our area is distinctive. There's been 11 Black senators in the history of the Republic, and 3 of whom came from Chicago. And 2 were from this neighborhood, Roland Burris on the right and Carol Moseley Braun on the left. And of course, Barack Obama came to Chicago because of the political Black power that he felt he could get elected, and sure enough, he was. And so we did this mural commemorating the 3 Black senators, and there's a great video that we did talking to Roland Burris about his being the senator, and he also was a state of Illinois, I want to say, not treasurer, but a high-ranking official. So, so it's great to center the community stories in the murals. Next slide. So what do we learn from, so 2 sources of information. I believe it's at University of Wisconsin. They have documented that if you put murals along corridors, that people will stay longer and spend more money. And then secondly, we have a wonderful work that was done by MasterCard that where they analyzed the sales along our corridor, and they found that when we had events, and we have probably 25 events over along the corridor every year, that sales increased 10%, and the sales increased 10% along the corridor, particularly along with food, small purchases under under $40, and then general merchandise purchases for $250. And so knowing that, we have now focused on our nodes where there are restaurants. And so you can see there's 3 of them, one at 79th in Indiana, one at 79th in Vernon, and one at 79th in St. Lawrence, where there's between 3 and 7 fast food restaurants where we're putting in more murals so we can get people to stay. Next slide. So some of the things that we did to beautify and place keep was to celebrate the people in the neighborhood. And so the banners show on the right is our Mitchell Smith, who's our head librarian. And then on the left is Mr. Caldwell, who has operated a couple of cleaners in the neighborhoods. So we wanted to celebrate who lived here and who has provided great service. Next slide. So you can see some of the light pole banners that we put up to just brand the cultural district. Next slide. We also painted intersections. I would say that painting the sidewalks have been more successful in keeping them clean than painting the intersections. So note to self. Okay, next slide. We've also taken some of the vacant building and put in window art as a strategy to place keep. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so one of the things that we're doing is putting in a microplaza at the library to celebrate Mahalia Jackson. She is one of 3 statues of African-American women in the city of Chicago. And so we're going to put this statue next to a courtyard at the existing library. And the beauty of that is that we raised about $1 million to put in the plant and put in the statue and a new microplaza, but the city of Chicago will maintain it. Because as we know, getting something done and maintaining it is a completely different thing. So we're really pleased that this will be maintained by the city, by the library, so that it will continue to be an asset. Next project. One of the other things, and I think both Michael and Amber talked about this, is working with existing property owners. And so the city of Chicago has a SPIF, a Small Business Improvement Fund, that basically they take the taxes that the property owners and store owners pay, put it in a fund, and people can submit an application. And so we've worked with 13 projects. Right now, 9 of those projects were awarded funds, and we worked with them to get them through the process, because the process, unfortunately, is laborious. But you can see all of those that were interested, submitted applications, got in, and we continue to work with them, similar to what Michael and Amber discussed. Next slide. We're also putting planters over on the left, or the blue planters. And so we're putting planters along the corridor. And again, data has shown that the greener the space, the more likely people are going to stay and spend money. Next slide. We also got the City of Chicago Department of Forestry to re-tree line the street. Someone in their infinite wisdom took almost all the trees off 79th Street. And so this summer they're putting in 193 trees, which are really important, because we know that 79th Street is one of the busiest commercial business bus lines in the city of Chicago. And it also unfortunately has the heat island effect, so that it is hot. It is 10 to 15 degrees hotter than a local park. And so putting back trees is a generational effort to cool down the corridor. Next slide. There's a new cooperative, the Southside Market, that's opening shortly, that will sell produce and also have a mini cafe. Next slide. One or two mega projects is Gateway 79. This is what is going to replace Mahalia Jackson Court at 79th and State. It's a LIHTC project, and as you know, these things take 5 to 7 years, so that's slogging through the process. But hopefully this will be what will be on that Mahalia Jackson Court eventually. Next slide. And this is a new development that's going at 79th and Indiana, and that they actually did get their LIHTC awarded. So this should be coming into fruition shortly. So it's great to work with developers that have interest in the community and work with us. So we're excited about this project. Next slide. So I just want to end that. I want you to think about, we focus on commercial areas. We recently completed a 7-year report where we mapped all of the businesses in the area. And so I was surprised to see that 60% of our businesses were not on the corridor. These businesses are people operating out of their homes. So I would urge you to do that analysis, because what you see, the millionaire next door is evident by all of these properties. And you can see that the bigger the number, the larger number of employees, and these businesses, 50 to 99, 100 to 250 employees, 250 employees are being operated out of people's homes. So you have to think of not only what's on the corridor, but what's existing in your neighborhood. Next slide. And then you can see these are the businesses that are on the corridor. So, just to, reiterate that with technology, people are having businesses both on the corridor and off the corridor, but corridor work is really important because, as the other panelists said, that they provide amenities and they are the front door of your neighborhood. So with that, next slide. I just want to thank you for allowing me to make the presentation.
Thank you, Nidra. Nidra had the tough job of being the last person and having to make up any time we lost. So I really appreciate you for that, Nidra. But I do want to just give you a chance to say a little bit more about I've been really impressed with what I hear about the restaurants that you have on the corridor, and I think one of them got a James Beard Award for being a culturally significant restaurant, I think. And then also, perhaps you could say something about your hands-on work with helping all of those restaurants adapt to COVID and
Sure.
demands of. Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you, Marcia. So we have, so one of the things that, again, as I say, map your assets, because one of the things that we learned is that Greater Chatham, we are the Soul Food Caribbean and West African Food District in Chicagoland, that we have over 86 restaurants that do $84 million plus in businesses. And that we are a net exporter, so 10% of the visitors that come into the area and about 524,000 people patronize those businesses. And so people come because they want that unique palette. And so we were thrilled to find out that we were this food district. People were coming in. And so, as I said earlier, that the businesses are really important because they are cultural anchors. And during COVID, they literally fed the people in our neighborhood. And so we have a Food Lab Chicago program where we work with mature food businesses to help them go from good to great so that they can increase their revenue, hire more people, provide medical and other benefits, and to increase their sales and have generational wealth. And so we've worked with businesses. And so, so in our Food Lab program, we've worked with over 100 businesses throughout the Chicagoland area. And we've seen that they have done all those things, increased revenues, stabilized and their hiring situation. But what we're most proud of, in addition, is helping them get those capital grants that Amber talked about so that they could buy their businesses. One of the things that we learned through COVID was that businesses were more stable and less impacted by the recession that COVID had when they owned their own businesses. And so helping businesses through capital grants buy, let's say, an existing business that they're renting, similar to Amber's example, or buy a new, buy or have new construction where they have gone from, let's say, a caterer to building a restaurant. And we are pleased that not only are we this cultural district, but as one of our restaurateurs says, there's really a resurgence in soul food. And so in Chicago, the restaurant Virtue, 2 years ago, by James Beard, was named the #1 restaurant in the nation. And that's in a sister neighborhood, just 15 minutes away. And it's in Hyde Park, and it serves, dressed up soul food. And then we have 2 local institutions, well, actually 3, that have been James Beard Award winners. One is Lim's Barbecue, which will receive that prize this year for being a place-based destination that people can't get enough of. And so, so we have Lim's Barbecue. We also have Brown Sugar Bakery, who was a Beard finalist, semifinalist, and then Justice of the Pie, who's a finalist. So to have those, kind of wonderful restaurants to get also that additional national recognition really helps cements our neighborhood as being that authentic and award-winning soul food district.
That's really amazing. I just love it. And I guess since we really only have time for about one question, I'll take one and expand on it that's in the chat. And that the question in the chat from Janice was, any tips on attracting restaurants to your corridor? And I'm going to expand that a little bit to all 3 of you to ask about, to what extent do you are you interested in and able to intervene in the retail mix? So like Nidra, for example, it's pretty clear that restaurants is the theme of your business district or right now, right? So are you able to, or do you even want to, or do you need to influence like empty spaces so that they're continuing to recruit businesses that complement everything else that's going on? Or is everyone handling that on their own, or how does that work?
So we do steer people. We are looking for a particular balance along the corridor. Some of
Mhm.
it is driven by what our residents say that they want to see. And others is, we have a real big emphasis on arts in our neighborhood. And
Mm.
so we want artisans to come to our neighborhood. And we are really actively promoting live work housing so that people, our zoning laws have changed. And so people could have a retail store in the front and live in the back so that we can have more eyes and ears on the neighborhood, but also attract more people and more foot traffic. So yes to all of the above.
All of that. How about you, Michael?
We really structure our programs to what we don't want to see, and that's why I mentioned the vape shops,
Mm.
particularly because a lot of our money is coming from the city of Cleveland, and they have a strong focus now on, navigating the dollar stores, navigating, the shape shop, those shops there. So we really put provisions on what we don't want to see and clawback provisions that if something like that happens, what would happen next. But now that I think about it, maybe a strategy would be maybe different grant amounts based on the proposed
Mm.
in use. So to incentivize a particular type of restaurant in this particular case, maybe we just increase the grant dollar amount for that. Or we maybe add some additional funding when we finally know it's going to be a restaurant. So that's the only kind of strategy. You don't want to make it too restrictive, even if for positive uses,
Yeah.
because the market is going to do what the market do, and it's going to dictate. And it really
Yeah.
comes down to that relationship between the tenant and the property owner, ultimately.
Right, but
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think that's great that you would give restaurants more money because restaurants, the creation of the hood is so expensive. So adding more money is definitely a great tip.
And I just love the idea of it sort of, it's one of the most basic techniques that we've sort of drifted away from feeling like it's okay to do, right? That we can give a bigger grant for something we want more. But we can, depending on the funding source. Amber, how about you? Do you take any role in shaping retail mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an informal role, but because we've gotten to know the building owners and the business owners so well and are often convening those groups together, we can have a lot of those informal conversations about what might make sense, or when there's a building owner renovating a new space, what's the type of tenant they're looking for, and how do we keep kind of those uses that we don't want out of the mix and also try and nudge them towards the uses that we do want that complement the rest. So yes, definitely. And then I agree with both Michael and Nidra that, restaurants, grease interceptors and the hood vents, the cost to those are pretty significant. And so to the extent that we can try and share those costs and encourage those things to come in and reuse these spaces, that's been really helpful in getting restaurants to occupy our storefronts.
Okay, great. Well, we are at our time. I obviously should have made this a longer webinar because I think each of you has a really fascinating story to tell. We are going to share the slide decks with everyone who registered for this event. Want to let you know that we're having an engagement chat. This is something we do every so often, where people who want to talk about community engagement in middle neighborhoods have a chance to talk. That's going to be on May 28th. And if you have any questions or want to be invited to that, just email Anne. Please email us whenever you have ideas, questions, etc. We're here to serve the community of practice. You can get me at Marcia, MARCIA, at middleneighborhoods.org. We like to promote our colleagues Center for Community Progress in their webinars. They do a great one. We're going to give you an evaluation after this that will allow you to give suggestions. Because you signed up for this, you will be added to our Middle Neighborhoods Community Practice, which basically means that you get first communication about our upcoming webinars, and that you can contact us if you want us to do a custom localized webinar about middle neighborhoods in general for your community, or connect you with other colleagues like Amber, Nidra, and Michael, and all of those kinds of things. I want to thank all three of them. Guys, you know, I want you to know they shared like the tiniest tip of all the work they do on this. They're really accomplished, and I hope that you consider them colleagues, and that you explore more about their work, and just, you know, follow their social media and check in on their websites. So thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of the week.